So we've been discussing Rahu and Ketu and some important points that you need to understand in order to interpret Rahu and Ketu's position more honestly within your chart. Now, there are the previous 3 videos we did, such as the use of Rashi aspects with Rahu and Ketu, embracing Ketu as part of your destiny, and also understanding the multi-dimensional approach to analyzing Rahu and Ketu. But further back on this channel, there are other videos related to Rahu and Ketu, such as Rahu and Ketu through the houses, as well as the series of videos that I did on planetary combinations. So within that series of videos, if you go back through youtube.com/Ryan's Vedic Astrology, through the videos on that channel, you can find how Rahu and Ketu functions with and for each planet. So the easy way to do that is go to youtube.com/Ryan's Vedic Astrology and go into the search function and simply type in Rahu plus the planet you're curious about, or Ketu plus the planet that you're curious about. So we're not going to get into that. However, what I do want to discuss briefly is the idea of planets when you have Rahu in the 10th from a particular planet. Now again, to understand how Rahu and Ketu functions with the planet itself, go back and review those previous videos. But the reason it's important to consider Rahu and Ketu in the 10th from a planet, and yes, you're correct if you're thinking that it's important to consider Rahu and Ketu in all of the positions from the planets. But the reason we focus on the 10th is because the 10th is said to be the karma bhava, the placement of activity and action, where things tend to occur, where you get involved in the world. So that's why the 10th house in the chart, even though it's not the ascendant, it's considered to be a very dominant placement in the chart, because whatever's going on in that 10th house, and wherever that 10th lord is placed, and what's going on with that 10th lord, that's telling you what are the actual kinds of karmas that you are getting involved with as a person. That's why you could have a lovely Taurus or Libra ascendant who has some cruel influences going on in their 10th house and maybe their 6th house, and so they become a very militant individual, because those cruel planets, if they have the right kind of combination, gives a tendency towards a militant approach to life. And this is often why you can't just look at a particular sign, ascendant, and say, this person is that way because of that. You also have to consider what's going on with the 10th lord, what's going on in the 10th house, because it's those things that are going to show what the person gets involved with. And even if they are a sweet or a comical or a pleasant person, if what's going on in that area of the chart that deals with activity has some cruelty to it, has some difficulty to it, they might come across with that kind of quality. It seems like that is them, but that's just the activities. So the same is going to be true with planets, with Rahu being in the 10th from any planet. So you will have to review, what does each planet mean? And again, on this channel, there are videos specifically talking about each planet, but each planet has a group of qualities. And when you have Rahu or Ketu in the 10th from one of those planets, it shows that part of what you're aiming to do in this life is find a more consistent balance with that particular planet. Of course, that's going to be true if Rahu and Ketu are also with that planet. But when it's in the 10th from that planet, the activities will be towards developing that planet in a more compulsive or obsessive kind of way. And now many of you might say things like, well, sure, you can have Rahu in the 10th from Venus, and that can tell us that you're working on diplomacy, you're working on becoming more artistic, more refined, having better taste, being more nurturing, developing more of these Venetian qualities. And maybe a lot of you will say, well, aren't we all doing that? Well, no, not all of us are doing that. Many people are just fine with their Venus, and so they automatically know what is in good taste. They automatically know how to communicate with diplomacy. They already understand how to nurture people, how to give love in a healthy fashion. But if you have Rahu in the 10th from Venus, it's going to show that that's one of the things that you're learning in this life, to act. That's the key, because we're talking about the 10th bhava. To act in a way that expresses that planet in a healthy fashion. To act in a way that expresses that planet in a healthy fashion. And on one of the previous videos, someone made a comment that they said, my chart doesn't support my Rahu. How am I supposed to develop these things when I don't have any support for my Rahu? And my response was, that's exactly the point. Your chart does not support Rahu. Rahu is not a planet that you can walk into and you've already got everything handed to you. It's not like you walk into a kitchen and you're supposed to make a bourbon chocolate chip pecan pie and everything's there for you. That's not a Rahu thing. A Rahu type of experience would be someone tells you to make a bourbon chocolate chip pecan pie and you don't even know what pecans are, let alone have a kitchen full of that stuff. So you have to do the hard work of figuring out, well, what are these pecans? And how do I bake these things together? And when you do that, then you're working with Rahu. So when Rahu is influential, there's not going to be an obvious support system there. You are working to build that support system. So the same will be true, for example, if we have Venus, Rahu in the 10th from Venus. You have some ideas, some fantasies, some things of what you think it should be like, but you don't actually know how to put it into play to act in a Venusian manner that is healthy. The same can be said for any planet. And my favorite one is always when people say, when they talk about Mars, and they talk about a strong and healthy Mars, they say, oh, he's a go-getter. He doesn't take no for an answer. He's a bulldozer. He just gets what he wants, and that's all there is to it. Again, that's not a healthy Mars. That's a Mars that doesn't know how to turn itself off. The healthy Mars fights a fight when it is appropriate, but doesn't go out looking for fights. Fixes a problem when the problem presents itself, but doesn't go looking for problems. The quality of Mars is to seek out, find, take care of problems before they become an emergency or a tragedy. Mars responds well in that regard, but when you've got Mars always turned on, when the person is aggressive and angry and can't calm down and tap into their mercurial side and laugh a little, or they can't tap into their Venusian side and just relax, or tap into their Jovian or Jupiterian side and just enjoy the presence of people and have a broader mind. If they're always on, always focused on the ideal that we must support no matter what, otherwise the world's going to go to hell. If that's all they're doing, that's not a healthy Mars. That is a Mars that is, it's like the switch just, it's broke. You can't turn it off. And you'll know people like that in life. So the same thing if you have Rahu in the 10th from Mars, or again with Mars, but check the videos about planetary combinations, as I said earlier. In the 10th from Mars, it shows that the way you act in the world, remember it's in the 10th from the planet we're talking about here, the way you act in the world shows that you need to figure out what does it mean to have a healthy expression of Mars. And you're going to watch this video and say, I have no idea. It's not supported. No one ever taught me. You're right. They never did. No one gave you the handbook. No one said, here's how you develop Saturn. Here's how you develop Venus. Here's how you develop Mercury. In a sense, that's what an astrologer is for, and that's what the idea of myth and archetypes are for. So what you do is you study about each of these planets, and you figure out, okay, knowing that each of these planets are a part of my holistic makeup, that when someone dies, the ability to grieve and feel that pain is Saturn. When you're on vacation and it's time to just lay back and enjoy the sunshine, Venus. When you're managing a project and there are so many moving pieces that it seems like nothing will ever get done, well, you tap into your Mercury to figure out what are effective systems to solve this problem or to implement to manage this problem better. Mercury. You get the idea. If Rahu is in the 10th from your moon, one of the things you're learning how to do is to feel appropriately. Many people who have Rahu in the 10th from the moon, they either feel too much, and so therefore they will shut down because they can't handle it. They don't know what to feel, what's appropriate. Am I supposed to cry here? Am I supposed to be angry? Is this crying too much? Or they go the opposite direction. They don't know how to do it at all, so they just become almost they become so cut off that their responses are not appropriate in, say, a situation where a show of emotion would be appropriate. And that's the moon, the ability to feel or the ability to receive. Can you receive things? If Rahu is in the 10th from the moon, oftentimes people will have difficulty receiving things, good things, supportive things. They won't be able to tell the difference. And again, it's Rahu. You can't tell the difference. You have to just try it and then pay attention and learn through trial and error. Or you go and you study about what would it be like if what I understand about this planet, if it was really healthy, if it was balanced and functional, what would that be like? How would that express? How would I be in that situation? And then that's what you have to start aiming towards. That's what you have to start working towards. You have to start practicing, mimicking, experimenting. So any planets that have Rahu in the 10th from them, any planet, that's going to show that the way you interact with the world, your activity, it's that area, that planetary energy, that planetary quality that in this life you are aiming to be more efficient with, but also gain greater understanding of and learn how to act with the strength of that planet. And in a sense, the inverse will be true with Ketu. You're going to have to do the same thing with Ketu if it's in the 10th from a planet. But usually what people have done with Ketu is they've made that planet the only thing. Again, using the idea of Mars. If you have Ketu in the 10th from Mars, that typically is going to show the imbalanced Martian who's always there, always looking for a fight. Oh, that person looked at me wrong. Let's fight. Oh, they're not agreeing with my mental position. Let's fight. There's got to be a problem around here somewhere, and if there's not, I'm going to break something, and then there'll be a problem, and I'll fix it. Or they're not able to rest. They're not able to take time to rejuvenate themselves, because Mars needs that rejuvenation of Venus in order to be a strong Mars. Otherwise, you get the highly caffeinated overachiever who's barely running on empty, but is fueled by caffeine or some other kind of drug just to keep going because they don't know how to balance that Mars. That's an exaggeration, but that's an easy one because it happens so much with people, especially with Mars. Or even with Saturn. You get Ketu in the 10th from Saturn, the people are hyper fixated on problems, on grief, on difficulty, on sorrow, on how things aren't going to go well. And what they're learning to do is to try to develop some kind of positive psychology to balance that out. With Ketu, you've taken things too far. With Rahu, you've not really taken any time to work with it. So you don't know what you're doing. So another key to working with the nodes of the moon, Rahu and Ketu, pertains to this idea of figuring out, are there any planets is Rahu or Ketu in the 10th from any planet? And if so, what is that planet? And then, what do I do with that? What do I need to study that planet and figure out what are its healthy qualities. And then how can I learn, how can I train myself, who can I model myself after to start embodying those qualities until they become natural to me. That's the key. Or if it's Ketu, where do I take it too far? Where am I too smothering with my love and affection, Venus? Where am I too intense with my Mars? Where am I too optimistic and trusting on luck rather than hard work, Jupiter? Where do I get too emotional? I just can't stand it, the Moon. Where am I too authoritarian and too protective and too masculine, the Sun? Where am I too trivial and too funny and always trying to make jokes to get out of being uncomfortable and losing myself in the media because I don't want to deal with my problems of my life, Mercury. So think about this, and maybe you don't have this, and that's fine. Most people do, though. But if you don't, maybe you'll see it in other people. But keep in mind that Rahu and Ketu's position Rahu's position by house from any planet is important. We're just focusing on the 10th because that is the most obvious one where the activities of that planet need to be worked out. You can do the same thing with every other house. You just have to understand the qualities of that house as well.